I am thrilled to start tonight's Career Catalyst program, From Public Policy to CEO, The Path to Leadership in the Energy Transition. Arvin Gannison, a Trachtenberg School alum who is the CEO of Fourth Power, is joining us this evening. Arvin's career has been incredibly fascinating and impressive, and we have worked back and forth to find a time that works with his schedule because of all you do. So I really appreciate you taking the time this evening. As for students, I know that we have, looks like today we have some current students and alum, admitted students. The way we run these programs will vary, but most importantly, it's a chance for you to learn from Arvin and to ask questions. So we love these to be as interactive as possible, as saying if you're somewhere that you can put your camera on. If not, and you have questions, you can either just unmute yourself and ask a question, raise your hand, or put it in the chat and I will monitor the chat. But really, this is a chance for you to hear from what his career path is and current work and gain some valuable insights. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you because everyone's here to hear from you, not me. So
All
thank you
right.
so much.
Well, thanks everybody. Ruby, say hi. This is my daughter, Ruby. She is, how old are you?
Uh, uh,
You got it.
Wait.
She's not 8. That's a lie. She's 3. She's almost 4. And my other daughter is in the living room. So tonight's going to be a night. My wife's at book club.
Bring Rosie.
No, you don't need to bring Rosie. You don't need to bring Rosie. It's okay. Well, no, they don't need to see Rosie. Okay. Well, I know you want to, but Rosie's watching Teen Titans Go and they don't need to see her. Okay. Anyways, hi. Okay, so what I want to do is I'm going to kind of try to force interaction here. I'm going to talk as little about like I'm going to just walk through my career, but I really want to spend more time answering questions about the choices I made. I want to talk about risk and what risk means to you in your careers. Ruby, okay, hang on one second. Ruby, hey, we talked about this. Okay, hang on one second. Let me just fix this. You can sit down and watch, okay? That's like kind of distracting. Okay? No, okay, you're done. Okay. So, yeah, I'll talk briefly about myself, but I really want to talk about education, risk, and choices, because I think a lot about the choices I made, and I think a lot about rational choices and how people should approach their career. And I do this talk a fair bit, just not with a child like climbing all over me. So a little bit about myself. I am the CEO of a company called Fourth Power. What we do is hang on one second. This is not going great. Ruby, hey, are we gonna have to have a talk? Okay. I hope you guys are getting all this. But so I'm the CEO of a company called Fourth Power. What we do is we store energy for long periods of time to make the electricity grid function on increasingly variable or renewable generation. It's really important to have this type of store. Ruby, okay. Can you give me 1 second, please? I'll be right back.
Thank you, everybody, for your patience and understanding for this. I know he apologized with this, so I so appreciate everybody's understanding. We will be back in action.
All right.
There we go.
You guys are going to get probably 80% of me right now, but that 80% is going to be awesome. So, right. So I'm the CEO of a company. We've spun this technology out of MIT. The chief technologist who came up with this idea is a professor at MIT in mechanical engineering. And I joined to spin the company out, raise funds, do all of that about 3 years ago. Prior to that, I led global energy policy for Apple. And in that job, did a couple of things. helped Apple and all of its suppliers procure renewables around the world. And what I think is really cool is if you have an iPhone and you go into your battery setting, there's a little toggle there called clean energy charging. That's the product that I rolled out. Um, Prior to that, I led policy for a trade group of clean energy companies, and then before that, I was appointed by President Obama to lead policy at EPA during his first term. Prior to that, I was on the Hill. Prior to that, I was at a think tank, and prior to that, I was at GW. So thanks, Ruby. Thanks. Thanks, baby. That's very nice of you. Um, so that's my story, right? I have done a lot of different things, and I think that the common through line is the way that I see the world is that every job I have, I realize that the job I had before was kind of myopic, right? Like I the more I know about something, the more I realize the less I knew about it before. And that's how I encourage people to live, right? You Ruby, Ruby baby. Are you trying to feed me gum? Okay. Okay. Thank you. Sorry. Um yeah, right. So I've worked on these issues my entire career, but it was really the perspective of understanding what it's like at a think tank that helped inform how I was as a Senate LA and then a Senate committee staffer. That helped inform what I was as a political appointee leading a pretty big office at EPA. That helped inform every other step. And I just recommend people approach each portions of their career with total curiosity and lack of hubris, because what you'll realize is nobody ever really sees the whole picture. And people that succeed the most, in my view, are those who understand that the world is bigger than the way that they individually see it. Um, Going from Apple to Fourth Power right now, it's probably been the biggest challenge I've ever had because I went from largely policy and electric utility world into being a CEO. And CEO's job is, as fun as it sounds, pretty unglamorous, right? It's a lot of fundraising, it's a lot of hiring and firing and um, stuff like that. It was a lot of skills that I didn't have on paper. But the other through line is like we don't need to stay in a public policy box or a business box. It doesn't really matter. All these things are jargon, right? Like what it is to do business, it's just different words, right? Like you might we have all these gap accounting rules for how we do our books, but that's very similar to public budgeting, right? It's different words and different ways to think about it. And I really think that the boxes that we put ourselves in are really a function of the words that we use to try to keep people out. And you can do whatever you want. I mean, you might not be able to be a doctor, but like, as it relates to these different fields, you should think of your education as a way to build a perspective on that. But you're not in a box unless you want to be in a box, right? You have the ability to move between spaces. And a lot of this, um, in my view, comes down to your ability to communicate and your ability to understand people. Because as much as AI is changing a lot of those things, at least for as long as I believe as long as my life will be, you still need to understand people and understand people's motivation, and that'll be the through line for whatever career you take. Public policy is super important. Um, Regulations, particularly in the space that I'm in, define market access for new technologies. The interplay between federal policy, state policy, grid policy is complicated and nobody really understands it. Um, and public policy is a lot more than the Hill or lobbying, like the idea of like going to smoke a cigar with somebody, right? These are all kind of antiquated ideas. Work in public policy is much more nuanced than that, and has served me pretty well. Um, I just want to make one more point and then maybe turn it open if there's any questions, which is this question about risk. And I want to tell a story about, like, my career sounds pretty cool, but I want to tell you about a time that it failed. I want to tell you about a time that it didn't work out, and I want to tell you about what I learned from that. Right after I got my master's degree, I got a job at a pretty prestigious think tank that was like a stepping stone for a lot of people. I got it, and I had this boss who just he's just it's not great. Like a couple weeks in, he was chastising me for not having two spaces after a period, which is actually it's not that is not. Anyways, he micromanaged me. He took away a lot of my creativity, took away a lot of my risk taking. 3 months in, I just decided to quit. It was not a good fit. I was not happy. He was not happy. I was not enjoying going to work, and I wasn't growing. And I quit. I quit without a job, and I was terrified. I was terrified because I didn't have money. I was terrified because I was worried what people would think. And I was terrified because I didn't know what the future would hold. Um, but what ended up happening is like that that gave me I was fine, right? I got another job a couple of months later. Um, But it gave me this confidence that has lasted my entire career, which is like the thing that I look out for is being satisfied in my life in the careers that I have. Um, and that confidence allows me to take risks. I don't say this blithely because risk taking is directly related to the privilege and the safety net that you have or that one has. Um, it would be naive to tell people, yeah, take risks. If you don't like a job, quit, right? The average person, even with a graduate degree, has debt to pay, has bills to pay, wants to build a nest egg. It's not as simple as that. But I guess the point is people who are creative, people who are smart, and people who are articulate about what they want and how they see the world will always succeed. And the biggest failure is letting ennui or the status quo really govern the choices that you make. And I see that a lot too. Um, there are people who I worked in the Senate in the God, this makes me seem old, in the late 2000s. There's people who are still there in the same jobs. Not that that's bad, but a lot of that has to do with their unwillingness to take risks and try something new. I think it's really important for people to change jobs, period. Full stop. I think that people should look for jobs a lot, not because they're dissatisfied, but because it's important to see what's out there. Um, Last point I'll make, my favorite class in this public administration degree had nothing to do with policy. It had to do with philosophy. I took philosophy classes. I took theory of public administration classes. And I found those to be the most interesting, the most relevant classes. I found policy analysis to be a little bit, I mean, I don't know if we should do this much real talk, but I found it to be like not particularly real life. Um, but some of the courses I got to take, including like environmental ethics, the ethics of animals, things like that. These are kind of classes that stayed with me. And it was a great opportunity to kind of do the multidisciplinary thing. I think if I ever went back to school, it would probably be to get a degree in philosophy. And it's because of the courses I was able to take, and especially how philosophy relates to public administration, public policy, and ethics was and remains super interesting to me. Um, okay, I think I can hear my voice myself getting a little boring, so let me stop and answer any questions you may have. Thanks for all the time tonight.
So I'm hoping that some of you will have some questions here. This is a chance to hear about any of his experiences where he is now. See, Ben has taken his put on his camera, so I'm going to open the floor up to you first, Ben.
All right, thank you. And thank you for being here. I really appreciate everything you've had to say so far. I was wondering if you could speak to kind of your time as I'm not sure if I'm getting this right or not. I don't know if you're an appointee or just worked at the EPA during the Obama administration, but that's an area of environmental policy field that I am personally really interested in, and also areas on the Hill as well. Denise and I have been hard at work trying to get me ready for internships and things of that nature. So I was wondering if you could just speak to your experience there and what kind of led you there, what made you a good candidate to work in the Obama EPA, things of that nature?
Yeah. Oh man, this is probably the first and not last time I had imposter syndrome. I was a political appointee. I was a Senate LA and then a committee staffer for about 4 years before the Obama administration started. And I got this political appointment to first lead the Congressional Affairs Office and then eventually lead all of the policy development for the head of EPA. Um, Man, I was 29 years old when I got that first job, and I felt like I had no reason to belong there, right? These are all um, people who, you know, had a lot more experience, but I re actually realized very early on that years of experience doesn't equal your ability to do the job, right? You need to be able to communicate and understand things faster and more clearly than people. So that was the EPA role. I was a Senate aide before. So I took a different route than most people for congressional jobs. I had no Hill experience. But what I did have prior to GW, I worked in an investment bank as an environmental analyst. Um, and there I don't know. This sounds ridiculous. You know how everybody says you need to network your way into the Hill? I just applied on the Senate employment bulletin and I ended up getting two offers. This might have been a different time where it was just e easier. Um, but um, no, like I did a lot of networking, and when I was going through the process, I had people weigh in for me. This is like in now two, this is 2006. This is 20 years ago. So very well maybe a different time, but I will say that this is the exception, not the rule. Most of these offices want to see some sort of experience. I think it's absolute bullshit that, sorry, that you need Hill experience because that's a thing. That's a thing that people can pick up quickly, but unfortunately, a lot of offices do want that, and internships are a good way to do that. Who's your congressional member back home, or I guess not here?
Yeah, I'm from Sacramento, so it's Doris Matsui, but I actually did a congressional internship that was kind of environmentally related with John Garamendi last spring.
And are you looking for another one in the summer?
Yeah, I'm trying to do currently the Natural Resources Committee is where I'm really got my eyes set on, so we're working on that application right now.
Hang on, let me just see if what which side of it? I
It's
guess the
the
Democratic side.
yeah, the Democratic side. Jared Huffman is the ranking chair.
Hang on, I might have a friend who's there. 1 second. Uh, you know what? Send me an email. I know the staff director of that committee, the Democratic staff director, is a neighbor, or she just left, but she can at least help me uh kind of do whatever you want me to do uh, uh when you're ready.
That'd be great. I really appreciate it.
Cool. What else?
What other questions? This is your chance. I'm going to ask one while we wait for people. And again, I would rather all of you have this opportunity to ask for questions, but one of the things we did with our executive in residence program recently, we did a program on remaining hopeful, like hope as it being a resilient leader. You're in a field, the environmental field. Every day we're reading things. How do you stay hopeful and resilient? You're clearly a father to young children, so you have hope. But how do you do that, and how does that reflect on maybe decisions you make about the work that you do?
Um, I've always cared about energy and climate change and this sort of stuff. Don't, I don't know. I don't think I would have ever worked on another issue. Um, I, yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of always been my through line for hope. There's an article, it's an interview in the New York Times with, hold on. Well, I'm not going to quote, but her main point is like, if you lose hope, you've lost, right? And what she does in this interview is she takes a step back to look at where the world was 100 years ago. And this is cold comfort. This is cold, cold comfort for those who are suffering right now, right? There's a lot of people who are suffering because of choices that are being made right now. So what I'm going to say is cold comfort for those people and these communities. But just 30 years ago, the world looked worse in almost every metric, right? We were polluting more. Uh, uh, People of color didn't have the right to marry outside of their race. Just when was that? 1968, right? Civil Rights Act was signed in 1968, so 40 years ago. No, 60 years ago, right? This is not that long of a time ago. Life outcomes were just generally worse for everyone. It is almost unarguable that life is not better now than it has been in any other point in history. So that's what gives me hope, right? Like when you take a step back, things are getting better. It just sucks right now. It Everything feels like it's turning back 20 years. I also like my job now because I can say what I believe as opposed to like the previous jobs I've had forever where I had to be very careful. Uh, that's what's hard for me. It feels like we are going back to a place I don't want to go back to. Uh, but when you take a step back, like with climate change, we screwed up the climate over 100 years. It took 100 years to get the first power plant was built in Manhattan in the early 1900s, right? It's like 120 years ago. Now, power plant emissions are the leading source of greenhouse gas emissions. To put that in perspective, a person has lived, I think, roughly from the time the first power plant came online before carbon emissions were not causing the climate change impacts we're having, all the way to now, where you're seeing temperature rises and just bad things happening to the environment. One generation. I think it is a very tall task to ask us to fix this in a shorter time period. But I think all of the indicators for everything as it relates to energy is there's not a clean energy premium anymore, right? Like, uh, you guys don't remember this, but I guess I don't either, but Jimmy Carter put up solar panels on the White House roof in 1970, whatever. And it was super expensive, right? This was not a financial cost savings thing. This was a signal. Fast forward to now. I live near Union Market. We have solar panels on our roof. They paid themselves back in 3 years, right? That's because the cost of solar panels came way down because of investments that government made, because of manufacturing advances, all of that stuff, and also policy. So we're at a point where the cleanest thing to build also happens to be the cheapest. So it's really a matter of time until we see that benefit. And when you look outside the borders of the US, you see it, right? Like, so we can't get too down because then we will have lost. I don't know who the we is here, and I don't want to ascribe that feeling to everybody here, but I'll speak for myself. It's just, I don't know, I don't have enough time to be sad, just to be honest. Like, stand up and fight. Do something. I don't care. My wife was at a meeting before book club tonight on how to re-envision our local rec center. So I don't know. Long-winded answer, Denise.
No, I love that. I love the honest answer. I always respect that. And in the executive in residence, the speakers talked about, and one of our speakers who does a lot of work also in Nisha Achara globally was talking about what he sees around the globe, in particular with energy, which was really, really fascinating. Other questions from attendees? Again, this is an opportunity for you. Um, Great. Thank you so much. I know that you're an admitted student, so that is wonderful. Um, if there's any questions, because I could ask Arvin a lot of questions, but I would rather all of you, if you have a question, if Ben, if you have another one, or anybody who
Nope.
is attending.
I'll just say this is like a no stakes thing. You should literally ask me the craziest question you have because I'm not going to judge you and I don't care.
I love our alum. Amazing. Other questions?
Like, what's it? Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, great. Wants to know an email. Are you okay, Arvin, with me putting in your your go forth
Yeah,
email? Yep,
yeah,
great.
yeah.
Okay, great. I'll put that in there so that way others can have it. Hold on just a second. Um, Other questions from any of you? I mean, I can ask another one because I, of course, have lots of questions. So I'll ask this question, because we get this, we have a lot of alumni working in the energy and climate space. Um, when you think about, there's definitely the soft skills that you already just talk about, but particularly like someone like Ben, who's early in their career, people who are early in their career, are there certain technical skills that you would think that someone could get now to help them have an edge, as much as any of us can look around the curve on the role that AI is going to be impacting this, which we all don't know. But we often get with students, we're like, okay, what's your differentiator, right? Like, what skills do you have when someone's looking at a stack of resumes, whether it's organization they're a part of or skills, anything that you would say this, focus in on this right now from what you're seeing.
So I'll tell you what I've done a fair bit of hiring recently on the AI piece. Like AI is great. You should use AI as much as possible, but AI should not be a substitute for the hard work that goes into asking AI what to do. Because it is so easy to tell who does not actually know enough to prompt the right questions to get the right response from AI. So like use AI as something to help you understand things, verify it, uh, but it's like junk in, junk out. So it really can't be a substitute for the learning that you're doing. The thing that I'm the most worried about is that using Claude or using whatever will be a crutch and a substitute for people to do the hard work to learn. But on the other hand, like I was I had a meeting in Baltimore and I drove and I was just talking to Claude the whole way about like this super wonky regulatory issue that we were having in Massachusetts. And you could just have a conversation. And it was like 80% correct, but it was worth it. So that's the AI piece. On the distinguishing things, I think having like a diversity of experiences is really important. I just hired to be our head of like the operations assistant, the person that builds out our events, that gets the space going. He's a Marine, and he's had no. This is his first non-military job. But I asked him during the interview, I was like, "Give me an example of time you've had to deal with really difficult logistics." Without having being told what to do. And he told me about this time that he was in Afghanistan and his base was cut off from access and he needed to deliver food 150 miles away. So I was like, that's a real example of work. So like think of diversity of experience as a strength. That's the first one. The second one is like be very clear with what you want people to do. I've had a lot of informational interviews where they just tell me what they are or who they are, and then the conversation kind of stops. I think when you're on the other end of it, you need like hyper actionable things to do. So like the best ones are somebody's like, "Hey, here's what I'm trying to do. Do you know anybody? I went on your, can I connect on with you in LinkedIn? There are three people in your LinkedIn things that I'd love to talk to. Would you make an introduction?" Like I would use, don't treat those informational interviews as like the end of the rainbow. Think of them as like the ways to get onto the rainbow, and ask people to do very specific things. Um, and don't have typos in your resume. Suzette.
Suzette, fantastic. Glad you joined us.
Yeah, hi. Hi, thank you, and sorry for joining late. My question is, I'm trying to decipher what concentration I want to pursue in my MPA program. My work is in foreign policy and Western Hemisphere affairs, but with all the federal government occurrences last year and the uncertainty, I'm kind of trying to diversify my skill set and really trying to decipher what skill would is going to be needed, right? And because I was thinking about doing my concentration in foreign policy, national security, but now I'm thinking maybe I need a transferable skill or a skill that will last, whether I'm in the public, the nonprofit, or private sector.
This is interesting. I think that's a really good idea. I Who knows what the future is going to be like of international development, international aid. I hope it's not this. I hope we recover, but I don't know. Um, I think the skills that are the most kind of like transferable and ones that can kind of plug and play everywhere and all these different things are some of the harder skill like budgeting. Um, I think that there's some business oriented skills that um, allow for a fair bit of transferability. Um, so that's one place to look. I think that there's a lot of nexus between foreign policy and other issues, right? So um, trade, right? Trade is always going to be an issue that's kind of underlying all of these foreign policy related issues. Same with taxation, international taxation. Um, so I don't think you should abandon it because I think that like this is an important line of work that will continue to exist. I cannot imagine this is the end. Um, but you can diversify it by looking at some of the other concentrations that are highly employable right now. So trade, taxation are two of them, that don't also deviate you from the thing that you care about.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think that's what I'm trying to kind of decipher, continuing the foreign policy line, but also being able to, find other avenues of skills and interests. So thank you.
Yeah, you got it.
What else? Other questions from anybody? Even if you're in a commute and want to chat in with any question.
It's all good if you don't. I'm around.
Looks like Ben has another one.
Yeah.
Can go again.
Great.
So one of the things that kind of dealing in the environmental policy world right now is, I guess I can say, like, I very much came to GW, looking to do environmental policy when it was kind of peaking with the Biden administration. And then right now things are just kind of looking rough. Obviously, we've talked about that and keeping hope, which I really appreciate the conversation about. And I would say my question is a lot of people they say that there's like a pivot that needs to happen right now for a lot of environmental policy people interested because government doesn't seem like the right way to go right now, obviously, or to necessarily like wait for another administration to come or something along those lines. Is there still a place in government for environmental policy right now, or would you recommend, is there places that you'd recommend to pivot to while we wait out kind of this moment? These are just kind of a lot of the emotions that like I have on my
Yeah.
mind right.
Yeah. Ben, that's real. I became friends with a lot of civil servants when I was at EPA. They're not the happiest people in the world right now. So it's kind of hard to recommend, like to pretend that everything's okay. And yeah, it's not. Um, but I think that you should look at the states. I think one of the regrets I have is when I was in my mid 20s in grad school, not jumping around to different places. I mean, assuming you have geographic flexibility, like the states are still doing really important work. Maryland is doing really important work. Virginia uh, is doing really important work. The governor of Virginia went from being kind of skeptical on clean energy to now absolutely embracing it. Um, New Jersey is another place. So like there are states that believe that part. Can you hear that piano? Or is it getting filtered out? Oh, good. Uh, hey Ruby, can you chill for a sec? Uh, there's a lot of places that are doing good work. So look at cities too. So uh, the DC's Department of Energy and Environment is super interesting. I think that like if I didn't have to work, if and I was just kind of chilling, I think one job I would love is a hyper local environmental policy job where I'm focused on tributary restoration or something like that. Those jobs are really good. You end up doing a lot of big stuff. My wife is the chair of the Washington Area Bicyclists Association, so WABA. The person who was the most responsible for building bike lanes, or one of the was really important in this, was a early career engineer at the DC Department of Transportation. She went to every single engagement meeting. She became a name. Uh, and she really, really made a difference at a hyper local level. I would not write that stuff off at all, even though like the federal government is not the totality of where stuff is happening.
And I want to add to that, we have tons of people in local government. Actually, right now, if you have not registered for a program that we have coming up, I cannot recommend this one enough. We have a career panel coming up. I'm just going to put it in here, Future Ready Career Path, State and Local Government. And for students who have not, or prospective students incoming that have not registered for that, it is a phenomenal panel. Actually, one of the panelists, Jonathan Rogers, still is in the transportation space. We have a lot of alum in the environment and energy space in DC government, throughout the United States and in the DC area. So one of our alum is Clark Mercer Arvin, who's the head of metropolitan planning, the Council of Governments. So
I would also say like transportation is environment, right? These issues are they're all the same in many ways, depending on what it is. So I would, when you think of environmental issues, I think more broadly. I think this can pull in transportation. I think this could pull in trade, right? There are think tanks that are working on something called a carbon border adjustment tax, which is essentially like how do you account for the carbon emissions of materials made overseas? So I would think broadly. There's a lot of ways to make impact.
that seems like an absolutely perfect time to wrap up. I love that line. There's a lot of ways, broader ways to make impact. I thank you for making an impact tonight. Thank you for all of our students and alumni who attended. We are recording this, so I'm thrilled to share with others. And thank you for what you do, for giving us hope and for doing what you do that keeps us going forward with this and for just believing. So I appreciate, I love the special guest that you're going to put to bed now. So thank you so much.
Can you say night night?
Arvin.
Yeah.
All right, see y'all.
Good night. Thank you.